Hello everyone, it is I am the one and only Blaze the Cat here, and I am from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos here. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next updated video game collection video, because I believe about the fact that previously, in terms of the updated video game collection video, that I believe Tails did somehow manage to able to get done the updated version of the 3DS game collection video back in the beginning of 2024. And in addition to that, previously, in terms of the actual series of videos for my video game collection video, I believe Joy did somehow manage to able to show off some compilation games and stuff like that, which I think is actually kind of interesting to say the least. But now, here we are with the forms of the next updated video game collection video, and this time is about the fact that we're going back into dual screens once again, except, well, we're going to be showing off the updated Nintendo DS game collection. So, now, usually back in Journey Phones have been 2016, I believe that Luigi did somehow manage to able to get done the DS game collection before, but while looking back on it though, it just feels a bit kind of outdated for specifically not only for its muffled voice, but as well as that though, the quality is average, but not the best either. So as a result though, thus, in terms of the actual games lineup, we got some best ones for sure, but some of them not so great to be honest with you. But regardless of everything else though, is about the fact that, and also, I believe back in the day that, basically they've got the regular Nintendo DSi, whilst now we actually got the Nintendo DSi XL, because, you know, extra large and everything. Now, as you can tell, I've got myself the, I would say dark brown color, despite the fact that this is basically a second-hand condition, because obviously, though, you see fingerprints and also some scratches here and there. I mean, usually, relatively speaking, though, it still works just fine, especially concerning for the fact that, obviously, though, it's about the fact that, well, you know, the screens are really, really big if you try to play DS games that way. So, relatively speaking, though, the top screen is, like, really, really pristine, and bottom screen-wise, not so great. Well, apart from that, though, we are very glad to have the DSi XL at the very least. So, yeah, as a result, though, because obviously, though, the Nintendo DS did first came out in 2004, which, seriously, it's been almost 20 years ago since that particular handheld did somehow first came out. And there was also the other three variants, which, as I mentioned this earlier, this is the Nintendo DSi XL, which, as a result, it did manage to originally came out in Japan in 2009, but then about a couple of months later, until 2010, from everywhere else. And meanwhile, when it comes to other models in particular, ranging from the original Nintendo DS model, which, as I stated earlier, it did originally came out in 2004, and there was also the Nintendo DS Lite, which did came out originally in 2006, and finally, there's also the regular Nintendo DSi, which it did came out in 2008 in Japan, whilst meanwhile in everywhere else, including the UK country, has to wait until 2009. So, relatively speaking now, while looking back on this thing now, it still looks very impressive even to this day. Mind you, when it comes to DSi and the DSi XL, there's a lack of the GBA slot, which means about the fact that you can no longer play Game Boy Advance games onto this thing. Well, that's just because it does have this unique feature, which we'll talk more about that in the future times. So, as a result, yeah, and as far as I'm aware, the entire Nintendo DS systems, as far as I'm aware, did manage able to get into the top 10 best-selling game consoles of all time. Specifically, it's actually on to 154.02 million units sold as since 2016, specifically on the 30th of June, which is pretty impressive, all things considered. So, but then again, we'll talk more about the functionality in Nintendo DS kind of stuff until in the future. But for now, let's get on to the games themselves. So, obviously, like what obviously Tails has mentioned about this, or some toys else has already mentioned about this in a previous updated video game collection video in the past, we tend to have some games back in the day, but we no longer have those, and instead we actually got some replacement ones. So yeah, I do apologize for that tongue twist in the end, folks. But anyway, as usual, we're going for these games in the actual alphabetical order, and as be expected, because obviously though we just like to do it that way. Although there's also some DSiWare games where I like to show this off, but we'll just try to able to boot up on our 3DS XL, because obviously though, as you know, the DSi shop is discontinued. So because of that though, yes, kind of sucks. But regardless of such though, let's get on to the actual collection, shall we? So either way, as I stated earlier, this is going to be the alphabetical order. So either way, let's get this thing to it. Diddy Kong Racing DS, which is basically a remake of Diddy Kong Racing, originally came out on the Nintendo 64. And while looking back on this game though, it's actually pretty good, even though it's nowhere near as awesome or perfection compared to the forms of the the Nintendo 64 version, mind you. Well, relatively speaking though, it does have some interesting stuff, like for instance, you can able to actually make yourselves your very own tracks and stuff like that. And there's also two, actually couldn't think about it, there's actually 4 exclusive characters in this particular version. Like for instance, there's Dixie Kong, Tiny Kong, and there's also Wisp Pig and Tyler, I think is what it says anyway, from the likes of the playable characters department. So yeah, that's actually kind of interesting. And as far as I'm aware, it also contains some exclusive tracks you know as well. So yeah, that's actually kind of interesting. So either way though, and the only thing I don't like about this version to me though, is that in order able to start the race, you have to deal with the forms of some gimmicks and stuff like that when you're trying to do a rocket boost start. Like for example, with the carts, you have to keep on sliding down with the touchscreen downwards in order able to make your wheels spin faster. And same applies with the forms of the actual propeller from that particular plane mode, and you have to like spin it as in a 360 degree spin. And meanwhile, when it comes to the hovercraft, you have to blow to your mic, so just in case you get yourselves a bit of a boost start. So, not the greatest, but either way though, and also as far as I'm aware, this version does completely did manage to able to, take out some characters from the N64 version, like Conker and Banjo, Banjo himself, because obviously that was about the fact that those two have now become in the Microsoft department. So, but no, still a good game regardless of some issues, but either way. Donkey Kong Jungle Climber. Oh yes, I sort of got this for the sake of the forms of trying to able to, play a bunch of Donkey Kong games. And it's especially noticeable concerning for the fact that for what I've played so far, it was actually quite alright. I mean, still, it might take a bit while to get used to with how the mechanics worked, as well as how the controls plays out, because this is basically a sequel to DK King of Swing back on the Game Boy Advance, because of the exact same gameplay style, except the noticeable difference is this time is that you're now able to actually take control of not only Donkey Kong, but as well as Diddy Kong with you. So, yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning. But I still haven't exactly beaten this game yet though, but I will do it at some point once I do able to actually get enough time for it. But apart from those side of things though, yeah, I'm glad to have this for my collection's sake, even though I mind you about the fact that it takes a bit while to get used to with controls and gimmicks and stuff like that. Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. Oh yes, I sort of remembered this game basically, and as far as I'm aware, according to what Silver did told me this is actually the very first Kingdom Hearts game we've ever owned for our lives, especially concerning for the fact that we were originally trying to get not only Kingdom Hearts 1 for the PlayStation 2, but same place with Kingdom Hearts 2 for the PlayStation 2 as well. But ultimately though, we ended up with the DS installment right here, which is of course Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, which features not only Roxas, but as well as Axel/Lee in the future games, and on top of that, Shion, and you name the rest. So, for what I've played, it's actually pretty alright. I mean, the story is easily the best part about the game to me, though, because it actually involves around friendship between the forms of not only Roxas, but as well as Axel and Shion. And that was a part of the time where you can able to play as not only Roxas, but the rest of the Organization 13 members, which is actually pretty interesting, well, specifically in multiplayer mission mode, but that's besides the point. Although I will admit though, I'm not a big fan of the mission structure of this game, although to be fair, this is a DS game, so you expect to be able to actually try to do multiple tasks at once. But regardless of such, though, it's about the fact that I do enjoy it for what it is, but it's just about the fact that the game's length is actually ridiculously long, even for if you try to go for the regular story and stuff like that. So yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning. So either way, though, yeah, good game despite its flaws, but still. Kingdom Hearts Recoded, which is basically a remake of the Japanese exclusive mobile game back in 2008, which originally called Kingdom Hearts Coded, but eventually, though, the game deserves to get its remake on the Nintendo DS, named Kingdom Hearts Recoded. And for what I've played, it's alright. I mean, the story is pretty stupid, though, especially considering for the fact it's all about the datascape, and as well as from that, though, is about the fact, I'm pretty sure it's about the fact that, well, generally speaking, it was about the fact that you go through the exact same worlds as in Kingdom Hearts 1 all over again, well, with some noticeable gimmicks and stuff like that they somehow introduced in this title, and as far as I'm aware, I believe you're able to actually only able to take control of, let's just say, Data Sora, because obviously, though, this is a different Sora, not the same Sora as we all know and love. So, yeah, apart from those side things, though, this game is, not great. But at the very least, the gameplay is pretty solid. I mean, it does have the exact same command deck system from Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep and eventually Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. But usually, relatively speaking, though, as I stated before, this game is alright. Kirby Mouser Tag. Oh yes, this particular game is kind of interesting because not only are you able to actually try to force to deal with touchscreen controls as what's shown on the back, but as well as that, though, you can able to take control of not only 1, but 10 Kirbys, which is interesting. So, but I haven't exactly gone back into this game for quite some time, especially concerning for the fact I still, yet again, need to get used to with how the mechanics worked, and on top of all that stuff, though, is about the fact that, well, I just need able to finish up any other Kirby games first before I'm able to dive into certain spin-offs and stuff like that. Like, I still haven't exactly beaten Kirby Superstar Ultra yet, and on top of all that stuff, though, that could be also applies with Kirby Star Allies, alongside with Kirby Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot, when it comes to 100%ing the games. So, apart from those aside things, though, at the very least, the cover looks interesting. Unlike the American version, it really did manage able to become, like, hardcore and stuff like that, or in some cases, almost like a comic kind of style to it. But either way, definitely need to get back to it at some point. Kirby Mouser Tag, aka Kirby Squeak Squad for those of you who lived in North America. Now, I'm pretty sure you know about this game because I'm pretty sure about the fact that Some Toy Sales has already done this Let's Play before, back in sometime in 2018. And for what I've played, it's actually pretty good, even though despite the fact that this game is overall a tad easy compared to the forms of how it does on the previous Kirby games for sure. But for what it's worth, though, I'm very glad to have this. Even especially noticeable, I believe Sonic did told me that we were originally going to able to try to get this game back in Journey forms of some time in, I would say, in 2010. But then we somehow got this game until 2014, specifically the physical version of this game, alongside with the forms of the Wii U Virtual Console re-release version until 2016, if I recall, because obviously, though, they now added in DS games to the Virtual Console lineup. So, yeah, pretty cool, though, and this is also the introduction to Daruch right here, the main leader of the Squeak Squad. So, either way, though, yeah, I would able to recommend this one, even though every nowadays the pricing is so goddamn ridiculous if you try to go after the complete copy of the game. But regardless of everything else, though, you should probably give this a recommendation. Kirby Power Paintbrush, aka Kirby Canvas Curse for those of you who lived in America. Much like the forms of how it does it on Kirby Mouser Tag, I haven't exactly gone back into it for some time, mainly because, again, I need to get used to with the touchscreen controls and all that stuff. But as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that this Kirby game is actually quite unique, and that's what it appears to be about the fact that you have to force to use the touchscreen controls to not only draw certain lines, to able to guide Kirby into some parts of the level, but it's also about the fact that this is one of the earliest DS games where basically touchscreen is actually a little bit more relevant. So overall though, yeah, definitely need to get back to it at some point, especially that then again I need to complete other Kirby games first before I dive into the spin-off games. So yeah, glad to have this, I guess, especially concerning for the fact that, well, glad to have that for the sake of the Kirby fanatic and you name the rest. Kirby Superstar Ultra. Basically, this game is a remake of Kirby Superstar back in the Super Nintendo days. So, although on the PAL territory, it was actually known as Kirby's Fun Pack. So, I do really like about the forms of this cover art right here. Not only because it's pretty epic in every way, but it's also very reflective too. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool to noticing this. And easily, without a doubt, alongside with the forms of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch, this is easily the best remake in any Kirby game. Not only because it features the exact same core gameplay as the original Super Nintendo version, but also it did manage to feature some new things to the table. Like, for instance, they added in some more sub-games to try to utilize with the touchscreen controls, and on top of that, more adventures, or specifically more games have been added, like, for instance, The Revenge of the King, alongside with the forms of Meta Nightmare Returns, and there's also Help of the Hero, and a True Arena, and you name the rest. So, yeah, I would easily recommend this, even though, again, it will get expensive nowadays, especially concerning if you're trying to go after the complete copy of this game. But I'm very lucky to be able to have this, according to what I would say Silver did actually mention about this to Sonic, that we somehow got this back in 2009. So that would be a perfect opportunity to have this just before it gets pretty expensive nowadays. So, but either way though, easily recommendable with this game, and I think it's probably best if you're able to try to try to get it. So, assuming if you do have a lot of money with you, I guess. The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass, which appears to be a Zelda Wind Waker sequel, but chances are there's about the fact that we have to deal with the forms of a different gimmick, which appears to be not only this game heavily utilizes touchscreen controls, but it's also about the fact that we have to deal with the forms of the main gimmick, which is the Phantom Hourglass itself. And for I've played it, especially concerning for the fact that recently, I think that was back in 2016, that I believe Sonic did tell me this. This is actually the first ever Zelda game, ironically enough, that we somehow managed to fully 100% everything on it. So, meaning about the fact that when it comes to getting heart containers and all that stuff, mind you, getting that last heart container, for what I've heard, when it comes to the particular fishing minigame, is a bit of a pain, especially concerning for the fact that obviously though it will scratch your bottom screen very easily if you play this game aggressively. But apart from those side of things though, this game is actually alright. I mean, sure, about the fact that the item inventory system is a little bit too small compared to the other Zelda games, specifically the console games. Again, it's probably because of the handheld's limitations, although I will say though is about the fact that the dungeons themselves are alright, except the fact that not only does it contain the most repetitive music, but it's also about the fact that this game will probably introduce into ourselves, probably some people seem to say is the worst dungeon in the whole entire series, which appears to be Temple of the Ocean King, not only because you have to do a somewhat bit of a stealth approach, but it's also about the fact that it does feature a time limit. So yeah, that's something worth noting for, and you might as well stay tuned whenever we decide to do this Let's Play in the future, because obviously though, we also got this for the Wii U Virtual Console re-release as well, just to give you a heads up. Which this could be also applies for The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, which, for what I've played, is actually pretty alright too. Like, usually relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, obviously you still have to rely on touchscreen controls for the majority of the time, but it's also about the fact that you can also use the microphone for multitude of ways, like ranging from playing pan flute and create a whirlwind for one of those items in particular. But for play it, especially concerning for the fact that this is another one of those games we fully 100% everything back then, specifically in 2016, to able to get ready to playing through The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Switch version most likely. As I said, I enjoy it for what it is, despite the fact that we have to deal with the forms of some gimmicky stuff as be expected, but the biggest difference is this time is that you can able to actually hop on to the train itself, which is kind of interesting to say the least. So, But yeah, you might as well give this a shot, I guess. Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, the original version. So, easily without doubt the best Mario & Luigi games of all time, which is especially noticeable because, well, obviously though, not long now until the most recent game in the series, which appears to be Mario & Luigi Brotherhood, is on its way for the Nintendo Switch, which I'm super excited for. So, for what I've looked back on the original version of Bowser's Inside Story, the story is epic, and on top of that, the combat mechanics are super fun to interact with. And on top of all that stuff, though, I still really love the sprite work. Back in Journey Phones in 2009, when this game first came out right here. And as far as I'm aware, this game was also known as, in Japan, Mario Luigi RPG 3, just because this is the third entry of the Mario Luigi series, because it makes sense, after all. So, either way though, yeah, you should definitely recommend this. And there was also the 3DS remake, which as a result though, did add some interesting features, including with the Phones to the Side story, which is of course Bowser Jr.'s journey, despite the fact that the 3DS version did not sell very well, whilst unlike the DS original, did manage to sell very well, which no wonder why that 3DS remakes of Mario Luigi games did not sell very well. I'm guessing it's probably because, well, it did manage to came out during when the Switch did somehow first came out, so I suppose that makes it a little bit more obvious than ever. But anyway, Mario Luigi Partners in Time, aka, for those of you who lived in Japan, this was actually called Mario Luigi RPG 2x2, which stands for 2 times 2, which means not only able to take control of Mario and Luigi, but also the younger counterparts by the forms of Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. And I love the cover art, by the way, because it looks very, very cool and awesome at the same time, whilst every nowadays, with the future Mario Luigi installments, they somehow managed able to contain the white background, which is not that interesting to me, but apart from those aside things though, yeah, that's as far as I can really think about it. And I honestly really do enjoy this game, despite the difficulty is a bit screwy, depending on what version of the game you play. I believe I somehow got the easiest version of Mario Luigi Partners in Time, at least as far as what I've heard. Like, the noticeable differences between the American version than the PAL European version is that how much boss's health they have. If I'm assuming so anyway. So either way though, yeah, another one of those games I honestly do enjoy. Despite it's a shame about the fact that this game never gets remade for the 3DS, I'm guessing it's probably because no matter what though, they're most likely going to be choosing the popular choices for Mario Luigi fans. But apart from those aside things though, yeah, it's kind of a shame that this game never gets remade for the 3DS. So, with the additional story and stuff like that, so Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games for the Nintendo DS. You guys, you know about this because I'm sure that Silver the Hedgehog already did manage to finish this game for the Let's Play department around the time when Paris 2024 did somehow firstly become a thing. So as a result though, before he played it, or especially noticeable we did somehow play this version in particular, this version is alright. I mean, it's not the best version in the world. That still honor goes to the Wii version in my opinion. I mean, it does have some pretty interesting events that was not found on the Wii version. Like, for instance, though, there's the cycling event. And also, this particular version also has multitude of dream events, unlike the Wii version only has 4. On the DS version, they somehow doubled that into 8. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So, yeah, apart from those side things, though, there's nothing else I can really say about it. So, obviously, though, yeah, give this one a chance, I guess. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games takes place in Vancouver 2010. And as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that one thing I forgot to mention is that obviously though, for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games was actually called Mario and Sonic at Beijing Olympics, whilst meanwhile for Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, so those of you if you lived in Japan, this game was actually known as Mario and Sonic at Vancouver Olympics. So yeah, that's why I classified that. And easily, without a doubt, this is the best handheld installment of not only for Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games series, but it's also, some people seem to say, this is probably the best entry in the entire Mario and Sonic series. As a result, mainly because not only that this game takes place in the Winter Olympics in Vancouver in Canada, but it's also about the fact that this game does have a best story mode in the entire series, because obviously it takes place in adventure tours where you can able to traverse into multiple locations, do mission objectives, and also try to deal with boss fights and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was meaning to try to do this game at some point, and I suppose, maybe, rather than just trying to do this on the exact same time as in the Winter Olympics is about to be a thing until 2026, I'm actually going to be pushing this forward possibly until next year, for 2025, if possible, especially concerning for the fact that just trying to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the existence of the Vancouver 2010 Winter Olympics. So, yeah, I'll let you guys know about that. So, either way, though, yeah, you can definitely recommend this particular version of the game. So, oh yes, this is a good old classic, Mario Kart DS, and sure enough, this game is a classic indeed, especially because not only this is the first ever Mario Kart game able to feature not only retro tracks, which does make a comeback from the previous Mario Kart games, but it's also about the fact that this is the introduction to the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, which unfortunately though has been shut down ever since in 2014, which is about 10 years ago. But apart from those side things though, yeah, this game is a pure classic and is easily, well, from what I've heard from Sonic, this is actually the first ever DS game we've ever owned, especially because, as you can tell, it says not to be sold separately. Last is mainly because we somehow got this game with a bundle with the original DS model, which is actually pretty cool, despite the fact that we no longer have the original DS model, just because the clamshell, from what I've heard, is easily breakable. So because of that though, it's a good thing we've somehow got the DSi XL instead. So that's just the way how I feel about it when it comes to able to getting ourselves, improvements on DS models and stuff like that these days. But yeah, you should definitely recommend this. Easily the best Mario Kart game that has ever came out to be. And it's also worth noting for that game also has mission mode, which as a result is very unique for its time, which I have no idea why they somehow refused to bring it back in the future games in the series. So that's a little bit of a missed opportunity to me. Mario Party DS, in some cases the final Mario Party game to be developed by Hudson Soft. So, just before, Mario Party games has actually gone through a massive drought until 2012 roll around when ND Cube managed to actually first revealed Mario Party 9 and onwards for the most recent entry in the series, which is Super Mario Party Jamboree. But I digress. So yeah, Mario Party DS is a pretty cool game as well, and it's a good send-off to the Hudson Soft developer for the Mario Party games. So, relatively speaking, the mini-games are pretty fun, and also you might be able to recognize this game because of the forms of this meme about the forms of the piracy screen. So, thankfully, this is a genuine copy, thankfully, so I didn't get myself my fake copy of the game, luckily. But that's besides the point. So anyway, the boards themselves are pretty fun, despite they are pretty small, because as far as the actual premise of the game itself is concerned, the Mario and the gang has somehow got shrunk by the forms of the staff, thanks to Bowser, which obviously caused them to shrink themselves like ants or bugs. So, because obviously though we can able to interact with certain aspects that's actually, well, hard for me to explain, because I know for a fact that we technically did this Let's Play back in 2016, despite the first video of that particular video somehow got the commentary cut off. So because of that though, I've been meaning to try to do this redo Let's Play at some point in the future, but not now, because obviously though we are looking forward to Super Mario Party Jamboree until next year. So either way though, that's as far as I can try to think about that. Mario Slam Basketball, aka Mario Basketball 3-on-3 in Japan, and meanwhile in America, Mario Hoops 3-on-3. So, yes, want to classify that. And you probably already know about this because we did the Let's Play of the game back in the beginning of 2023. So, for what I've played, it's actually alright. I mean, the touchscreen controls might throw some people off. But apart from those side things, though, that so far, that we actually got a ton of views back in Journey forms of whenever we did this Let's Play, because obviously though we show off some unlockables and stuff like that. But apart from those side things though, yeah, got nothing else to say about this. I mean, sure enough though, it's about the fact that we have to, play basketball with Mario and the crew. And it's also worth noting for, it's actually pretty unique that this game has also been partnered up with Square Enix, which as a result, it does manage to contain not only certain Mario playable characters, but it's also certain playable characters from Final Fantasy, ranging from Ninja, White Mage, Black Mage, and Mogul, and Kikata. So yeah, that's actually kind of cool and interesting, which eventually they'll brought those characters back until Mario Sports Mix for the Wii. Usually, the only differences being is that in Mario Sports Mix, you play multiple sports, like usually 4 of them. In here, though, there's only one sport, which is basketball. So either way, though, pretty cool. But I do really wish if that sport will make a return specifically for the Switch era of games. But at this point in time, folks, is that the Nintendo Switch's lifespan has almost come to an end at some point in the future. So yeah, I just want to classify that. Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis. Yeah, this is another one of those games we did a Let's Play of back in Journey Forms Event last year in 2023. And for we've played, it was also alright. I mean, this is actually an introduction to the point that it's pretty similar to Lemmings, if you ever played that game before. Basically, though, you have to guide mini Marios at the end of each and every single level, and it's your job to able to not let any mini Marios die, because obviously, though, if you do, chances are, though, you won't be able to deal with the Donkey Kong boss fight after all. And this is actually a nice little welcoming return of Pauline, which eventually she becomes stable in the future Mario games, ranging from not only a bunch of sequels to Mario vs. Donkey Kong, but also Mario spin-off games as well, ranging from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Mario Tennis Aces, Mario Golf Super Rush, Mario Strikers Battle League Football, and recently, Super Mario Party Jamboree. So yeah, that's why I classify that. So, but yeah, for what it's worth, it was alright. But either way, though, I'm just not a big fan of the forms of the Lemmings kind of gameplay style like this. But eventually, though, they somehow get its somewhat of a spiritual successor on the DSiWare, which appears to be Minis March again, which I'll get to that sooner or later. But yeah, you probably get the idea of how I feel about this game. So not great, but it's passable. Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minland Mayhem. In some cases, the 4th entry of the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. And I'm gonna say, this game is actually it's really dang good. Like, for instance, though, the main gimmick of this game right here is that you have to create your specific paths with the graders and stuff like that. And relatively speaking, I was about the fact I do enjoy the world environments of this game. I mean, sure enough, though, this game is just centered around theming of theme parks and stuff like that, which I do honestly appreciate. But apart from those aside things, though, this is another one of those games I haven't exactly gone back to ever since the past few months or years. But that's just mainly because I'm more into, like, you know, Mario vs. Donkey Kong gameplay style on the Game Boy Advance, and nowadays with the Switch remake. So, but either way though, yeah, definitely recommend this one if you decide able to go for a lot of puzzle kind of games like this. So, Metroid Prime Hunters. Oh yes, the Metroid game on the Nintendo DS. And this is not the only one, because there's also another game which I'll show this off in a moment. Now, if you couldn't tell already, I have to print out the actual front cover of the game, because for whatever reason, whenever I first got this game, basically though, it just somehow comes with the wrong cover, which appears to be Metroid Prime Hunter's First Hunt, which is apparently a demo. So either way though, thankfully though, I somehow managed to get myself my replacement cover, which despite the fact that if you couldn't tell, it does have some black marks on it though, but beggars can't be choosers. So yeah, I haven't exactly gone back into this yet though, because again, much like several of Kirby games, ranging from Kirby Mouser Tag and Kirby Power paintbrush, I still need to try to get used to with the touch controls and stuff like that. Despite that, from what I've heard, it gives a lot of people's hand cramps if you play this game for too long. But apart from those aside things though, this game is actually alright for I've played it. But usually, relatively speaking, though, the reason why I've got this game is to complete my entire Metroid collection, apart from a few exceptions. So either way, though, yeah, I suppose I'm glad to have that. And that could be also applies for Metroid Prime Pinball, which is basically a pinball with touch of Metroid. So because of that, though, yeah, glad to have this. And luckily, though, unlike Metroid Prime Hunters, this is actually a genuine front cover. So yeah, just want to classify that. And for what I've played, it's actually pretty good, even though despite the fact I haven't exactly got too much progress on it. And yeah, if you're probably wondering, there's no game card in here, but that's just because it's already on my DSi XL at the moment. And I did have a lot of fun with it so far, even though despite the fact that the reason why I had this game with me is because, well, it's just for the sake of my Metroid collection. And yeah, this is one of those games, it does manage to have compatibility with this particular DS accessory, which appears to be Nintendo DS Rumble Pack, which, unfortunately, though, I don't have this, but that's just mainly because, for one, obviously, though, DSi XL will no longer have a GBA slot, and also, for what I've heard, if you do manage to get this game with the Rumble Pack, it's disgustingly expensive, like 70 quid for a regular DS game with a pinball mechanics. No thanks. So, either way though, yeah, I do enjoy it for what it is. Even though the actual pinball tables are actually based off from Metroid Prime 1 mostly. So, yeah, that's something worth noting for. New Super Mario Bros., or if I like to call it Super Mario Bros. 5, because obviously that's, you know, with the new brand right there, it's no longer new anymore. So, because it's now retro and everything. But apart from those aside things though, this game is a pure classic, much like the forms of Mario Kart DS, although except the fact that this is a new Super Mario Bros. Game. So either way though, yeah, I'm very, very happy to have this back in the day. Especially I had a ton of memories when it comes to playing this game. Like, I can replay this over and over again. Not only from my regular DS version, but also with the Wii U Virtual Console re-release version, and you name the rest. So, and you probably already know about this as well, because I'm pretty sure that we did this Let's Play back in 2016 sometime. So, yeah, something's worth noting for. Okami Den! And if you couldn't tell already, this is the American copy of the game. And I like the fact that the DS game cases, depending on what region you lived in, the case looks a bit different. Like, for instance, in the European version, the cases all look a bit thick. Whilst meanwhile, the American version, same applies with the Japanese version as well. Despite they're a bit of a pain to open, I will admit it though right away, because relatively speaking now, they somehow managed to able to secure the actual DS cases very well. But apart from those aside things though, not only because it's black this time, but it's also about the fact that, well, obviously the entire case is actually a bit thinner. So, almost like a similar shape or a similar size as the forms of the 3DS game cases. So yeah, something's worth noting for. Yeah, for Okami Den, I have yet to touch upon it just yet though, because obviously though I still need to finish up or essentially trying to 100% every single DS games up to this point. Maybe I will get into this at some point, but right now, no. But either way, the reason why I've got this, because I somehow got Okami for the Wii, and even nowadays with the HD remake or an HD port on the Switch, so I can able to play the game on the go that way. So either way though, yeah, nothing else I can say about this. The Princess and the Frog, oh yes, I sort of remember this, potentially speaking now, because as far as I'm aware, yeah, this is basically the game that was based off from the 2009 movie, which is of course the same name, The Princess and the Frog, and for what I've played, I actually really enjoy it, even though it's basically a simplistic platformer, but it's also about the fact you have to deal with a lot of cooking gimmicks as well, with touchscreen controls and everything, so yeah, nothing else I can really say about it, even though you can only play as Tiana the whole way through, just because she's the main star of the game. So, yeah, that's something worth noting for. So, yeah. Sega Superstars Tennis, and a funny story actually, I believe that Sonic did tell me this. He did originally get this game back in 2010 for some time, but all he ended up getting is a crappy bootleg version, which you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you dare manage to able to get yourselves the bootleg version of the game, not only that your save data gets corrupted, but it's also about the fact that, for whatever reason, it refused to play it not only on the DSi, but as well as the phones of the DSi XL, for I've tested this out. And yeah, nothing else I can really say about it. But at least, thankfully though, we actually got the genuine copy of the game, thankfully, and it did manage to work just fine. So either way though, is what I classify that. And yeah, basically Sega Superstars Tennis, for what I played the DS version, it was actually pretty alright, even though the graphics in this version is not exactly the most impressive thing I've seen, unlike the forms of the PlayStation 3 version and the Xbox 360 version. So yeah, apart from those side things though, it's nice to have this if you decide to play this game on the go. And relatively speaking of, I've heard that we play a lot of it, even back in the day, despite I wasn't around during that time. So Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. Out of all the actual versions of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing I've played, the DS version is probably my least favorite version of the game. Nothing bad or anything, but there was that one glaring issue I have with this game in comparison to the console versions, including PC version as well. The rubber banding AI is way too cheap in this version, I'm not gonna lie for saying this, even on the easier difficulty, because for whatever reason, the players keeps on catching up to you, and on top of all that stuff though, the physics is way wonky sometimes, if you get hit by certain items and stuff like that. But yeah, that's nothing else I can really say about this version. I mean, it is average, I mean, it's not the best version either. I mean, yeah, got nothing else to add about this. Sonic Chronicles, The Dark Brotherhood, the only Sonic RPG game to ever came out during that time back in 2008. And relatively speaking though, originally this game was originally going to have a sequel, but it's been cancelled due to the forms of, well, complications. So, but for what I've played this, it's not great. It is definitely not great at all, especially concerning for the fact that, well, obviously though, much like any other Zelda games during that time, you have to use the touchscreen controls a whole lot, but as well as it's very also noticeable about the fact that the graphics looks way uglier, and on top of that, the soundtrack, the soundtrack is really bad. And you see what I mean if we decide to do this Let's Play in the future, because, you know, definitely need to get around on doing some more RPG games for the time being for our channel. But, yeah, this game is not good. I mean, yeah, definitely skip this, if possible. Sonic Classic Collection, which is basically a Sonic game compilation game, which obviously not only contains Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Sonic and Knuckles, and you get the idea because I'm pretty sure Joy has already mentioned about that in a compilation video game collection video. So, yeah, got nothing else to add. Pretty good alternative for able to be playing classic Sonic games on the go. Certainly a lot better than the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis, that's for sure. But apart from those aside things though, despite the screen resolution is a bit weird sometimes, and also the speed up music sounds way off, especially considering it's almost like a pitch differences. So yeah, apart from those aside things though, yeah, there's nothing else I can really say about this particular compilation game. So yeah, you get the idea. So pretty cool. Sonic Colors for the Nintendo DS, and you probably already know about this because I'm pretty sure that Tiana recently finished that particular Let's Play back in about a month ago. So either way though, and before she played it, this game is actually really good, especially compared to the console version, specifically the Wii version. This game is basically Sonic Rush 3, like it's basically a successor to Sonic Rush, except with, you know, color powers, and you do learn some specific abilities, like Stomp and Wall Jump, and you name it. So, yeah, definitely recommend this game right here, especially considering for the fact that it's basically Sonic Rush's gameplay, but with colors, powers, and stuff like that, because obviously, though, you still have the usual 4 wisps right here, but there's also 2 additional wisps that are only exclusive to the DS version, which is Red Burst and Violet Void. So, yeah, definitely recommend this one, which also applies for Sonic Rush. And as you can see, there's me on the cover, which that was actually the first ever debut of Blaze the Cat. So yeah, 92%, the best Sonic game ever, which I agree, from Nintendo Official Magazine. So, I digress. And for what I've played, yes indeed, this game is really fun, even though despite the fact that there might be some bottomless pits in the later half of the game, which goes nosedives into difficulty. But apart from those side things though, yeah, I did have a really great time playing this game after all, especially considering for the fact that it's exhilarating, and it's also technically it's the first ever Sonic game to not only feature the boost gauge, but as well as the S rank is actually first introduced in a Sonic game. So yeah, it's one classify that. But then, here comes a sequel, which is Sonic Rush Adventure. And of course, much like the original Sonic Rush, it does receive 92% from Nintendo Official Magazine, which I do absolutely agree. Even though there's only one particular gripe I have with this game, and that's what appears to be Marina Raccoon. That Marina Raccoon, she's the most annoying character in the entire Sonic series, easily without a doubt. But apart from those aside things though, it's basically Sonic Rush, but you're only able to experiencing a lot of sailing, and as far as I'm aware, Ray the Flying Squirrel already did this Let's Play back during at some point during the summer. So yeah, that's why I classify that, and you should probably recommend this as well if you're a huge Sonic fanatic such as myself. Star Fox Commands. So this is an interesting game because not only about the fact that it does manage to feature a similar plot structure as Shadow the Hedgehog to me though, because you have to do a multitude of endings, but as well as that though is about the fact that this game is another one of those games you have to utilize touchscreen controls, and no matter what though, much like any other games for the time, I still yet to play this game for some time or another, but that's just mainly because then again, I have to get used to with touch controls, and you probably need the rest, so either way though, that's something's worth noting for. So yeah, for its worth, what I've played, it's alright. I mean, it's not the best, but either way though, it is average. Super Princess Peach. Yes, before she got the second game, which appears to be technically Princess Peach Showtime for the Nintendo Switch, but back in Journey Forms of in 2005, this was the only Princess Peach game that she ever got during that time. And for what I've played, it's actually pretty underrated in my opinion. I mean, it has a lot of platforming, unlike the forms of how it does it in Princess Peach Showtime, that actually is very, very easy from certain stages, for what I can tell. But usually this game in particular does feel pretty challenging towards the end. Well, apart from those aside things though, there's nothing else I can say about this game. So either way though, yeah, be meaning to try to do this Let's Play in the future for trying to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the game's release, specifically in 2005 in Japan anyway, that is. So yeah, pretty underrated. Pretty dang underrated. Super Mario 64 DS, which obviously though you probably already know about this because I'm sure that we did this game back in 2021 for its Let's Play department, and this is basically a DS remake of the good old classic Super Mario 64 back on the Nintendo 64, with new features such as 30 more power stars, and on top of that, multitude of playable characters ranging from Mario, Yoshi, Luigi, and Wario with their specific different abilities and all that stuff. And I'm gonna say, this game is actually pretty fun, despite the controls are pretty mixed bag. Like, for instance, though, it's about the fact that in order able to maneuver your character, you can use the D-pad, but it's a little bit tad bit more stiffer, because as far as I'm aware, in order able to run, you have to hold down the Y button. So generally speaking, there's nothing else I can say about this version. So apart from the fact that despite the controls, as I said this before, can be felt a bit wonky at times, even if you dare manage to play the game on touchscreen, that makes things even worse. So generally speaking, it's about the fact that unless if you play this game on the 3DS, you should be okay, but the actual control scheme is actually a bit more of a far cry to the original game, because in the original game, you have your analog stick and stuff like that to your disposal. So either way though, and also this game does manage to feature some touchscreen mini-game controls, so I'm sure enough though you might be able to get a lot of distraction for it, unless if you do need to catch a whole bunch of rapids, depending on what characters you're going to be using, within different colors and all that stuff. So yeah, pretty recommendable for this particular remake, despite the controls are not as perfect as we expected. But apart from those aside things though, it's still a Super Mario 64 game we all know and love, but with extra challenges and extra playable characters, as you probably already know. Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll, aka in Japan, Super Monkey Ball DS, because as far as I'm aware, I think that's what it translates to, but either way. And you probably already know about this because we did the Let's Play of this game back in 2020, despite the frame rate is actually chugging a lot, but that's mainly because, for whatever reason, this game never gets re-released on the Wii U Virtual Console re-release version, so I have no idea why they somehow skipped certain DS games for third-party support for the Virtual Console games lineup, but that's besides the point. and 5 players is actually pretty good, even though it's basically a compromised version of Super Monkey Ball Deluxe, because some levels are very familiar, and there's also some other levels that we've never seen before. But apart from those aside things though, yeah, it's a good time, and this is the last good Monkey Ball game just before it goes a bit more downhill with Super Monkey Ball Adventure all the way up to Super Monkey Ball 3D, until eventually the series has been redeemed themselves thanks to Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, and even nowadays with Banana Rumble. So yeah, that's something worth noting for. And yeah, you should probably recommend this one if you play this game on the go. And there's also some party games as well, which is nothing right to home about. But there's also touchscreen controls, which honestly though, when it comes to experiencing the main game, I highly recommend you use the D-pad, which as a result, it can be felt a bit iffy at times. But either way, still is a good game. Oh boy, Wario Master of the Skies, aka in Japan, Wario D7, because you know, it does have 7 transformations for this game, and you probably already know about this because I'm sure that Sonic and Mighty, if I recall correctly, somehow did this game, and it's not good. This is easily one of the worst Wario games I've ever played, especially considering it's bad enough that I don't have the manual anymore, and on top of that with all these leaflets and stuff, because, relatively speaking, this game is not good. Like, it's all gimmicky, and on top of all that stuff though, backtracking is, well, this game is basically a Metroidvania kind of game, which I honestly don't mind, but it's just about the fact that you have to deal with so much to deal with, ranging from some repetitive mini-games every time whenever you come across into a treasure chest, and not to mention that was about the fact that trying to get 100%ing this game is way tedious than I thought I was going to. Like, relatively speaking, some stages could go by for way too long, and as far as I'm aware, that this game doesn't seem able to give you that much checkpoints, unless there's some Wario hats everywhere. I mean, it's hard for me to explain because I know for a fact it's been about 2 years ago since we've last played this game, because after when Sonic and Mighty did somehow manage able to both got rage quit in one of those parts in particular. I mean, yeah, this game's not good. But thankfully though, we got some 2 superior Wario games for the DS, so WarioWare DIY or do it yourself. So basically though, this is basically let's just say it's a prequel to Super Mario Maker, for what I can tell, because obviously though you can make your very own micro games and you can share them, or in some cases play certain micro games online, despite the fact that, you know, Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, as I stated before, is no longer existent after 2014, so there's no way we can able to share micro games anywhere else now, so it's a bit of a shame really. But apart from those aside things though, it's actually a really dang good game. Like, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that there's also the WiiWare counterpart, which appears to be WarioWare DIY Showcase, which is basically the same thing, but it's only on digital formats. So I have no idea why that the WiiWare version never gets the physical release for some reason. But either way though, yeah, you should probably give this game a shot actually, especially considering for the fact that if you love WarioWare, you should probably give this a chance, especially considering for the fact that, well, you get the idea. WarioWare Touched. And this is certainly a great game, because as far as I'm aware, this game heavily utilizes touchscreen controls, because that's the main selling point of this game, especially because, you know, this is a DS game after all, and from what I can tell, this manual is incredibly thick, because obviously with multiple languages and stuff like that, kind of insane if you ask me. And you probably already know about this, because I'm pretty sure that Tiana somehow did this game back in 2022, and as far as I'm aware, she did really enjoy it, unlike Wario Master of the Skies, but that's besides the point. So, yeah, easily recommendable for this one, especially concerning for the fact that if you love, you know, certain micro games, but with touchscreen controls, then you should probably give this game a shot, especially concerning for the fact it is such a dang good game. So, yeah, definitely recommend it. Yoshi's Island DS, or originally though, this game was originally going to be called Yoshi's Island 2, But as a result, it just calls it Yoshi's Island DS because, you know, dual screens and stuff like that. So it makes sense for this context. So yeah, I enjoy this game as well. Especially not only does it contain not only one, but multitude of babies you can able to take control with, while you still need to take control of Yoshi on certain aspects. Like for instance, as you can tell from the cover, you can able to use Baby Mario, Baby Peach, which is actually, well, not the first debuts, because that honor goes to Mario Luigi Partners in Time, technically. But there's also Baby DK, which eventually he'll come back in Mario Super Sluggers. There's also Baby Wario, which eventually he'll come back in Dr. Mario World, despite the fact that that game is discontinued. And of course, Baby Bowser, which is interesting. Well, usually relatively speaking, despite the level design is actually felt a bit, well, it is fine for what it is, but either way though, I somehow almost trying to 100% presenting this game, if only for the fact that the difficulty is way too dang hard, especially towards the end. Like, for instance though, if I was expecting to try to able to look after all of the babies, or specifically trying to go for a perfect score, well, basically that is about the fact that there's going to be a lot of trial and error involved. And let's just say one of the worst levels in the game to me though was taking place in World 5-5, not only because it's an auto-scroller, but it's also really darn lengthy. And no matter what though, yeah, prepare yourselves with the forms of this ultimate frustration if you get to that stage. So, but yeah, apart from those side of things though, yeah, I do enjoy it for what it is. And finally, in terms of the physical DS games I have, Yoshi Touch and Go, which is basically it's almost like a tech demo of how the touchscreen actually plays out, with the stylus and everything. And for I've played, it was actually alright. I mean, no matter what though, it's about the fact that the reason why I've got this game right here, much like Metroid Prime Pinball, we've decided to get this game just for the sake of the actual Mario Universe collection, including Yoshi himself. So, and also much like WarioWare Touched, this manual right here is also very thick because of, you know, multiple languages and everything. So, yeah, there's only like 4 modes I can only interact with, which appears to be not only score attack, but as well as the forms of marathon, time attack, and challenge mode. But apart from those side things though, yeah, this is actually an alright game. So either way though, but that doesn't stop there, because let me fetch my 3DS quickly, because I can easily show you my DSiWare games I somehow got. Mind you, it's not much, but I'll just quickly fetch the 3DS real quickly, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, back again. Sorry about that. Especially concerning for the fact that, well, as I stated earlier, I need to bring my 3DS XL with me, just in case if there are certain DSiWare games I somehow got for that particular system. So, yeah, let's just bring it all the way down, turn the volume down for a second, so just in case we can able to see what specific icons it will show up. So either way, I've been busy playing this recently just for preparing for Sonic X Shadow Generations, by the way, but that'll be a topic for a later time. So anyway, the first DSiWare game we've got, which appears to be WarioWare Snaps, it's simply put, it's just a pretty bare bones WarioWare game, because all it got is just 20 micro games in this entire thing. I mean, I get it, the main selling point is the forms of the camera function, but that's besides the point. So, and there's also the forms of, as I said this earlier, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis March Again, which is basically, it's like a mini version of Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2 March the Minis, but there are noticeable differences being is that, obviously though, you're able to actually now experience to the point where you can't stop those mini Marios in one place, so you have to let them go automatic mode, and relatively speaking though, it does have a live system, so it's why I classify that. So yeah, everything else will be come to expect of how that game actually plays out. Definitely one of my least favorite Mario vs. Donkey Kong games I ever played, next to Tipping Stars, which, yeah, speak for itself, that Tipping Stars is not good, spoiler alert. But relatively speaking, that's as far as I can think about it. So yeah, that concludes our entire updated Nintendo DS game collection. Honorable mentions in regards to the forms of the DSiWare games as well. Again, despite we've only got 2 of them, because we usually have a bunch of them, specifically 10 or 9. But unfortunately though, we're no longer going to be getting the rest of the DSiWare stuff anymore. because, you know, the 3DS has already been shut down for eShop and you name the rest. So, thank you guys so much for watching of this entire collection video, and this is me, Blaze the Cat here, and I'm from the likes of the Mexi Toys. Then until then, stay tuned until tomorrow for the grand finale of the entire Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake, all thanks to Ray the Flying Squirrel. And as far as the rest of the video is concerned, well, obviously though, that Maxi will definitely going to be back on to playing Luigi's Mansion 2 at some point on this coming Friday. And on top of that, Sonic will able to definitely finish up the rest of the films of the entire Sonic the Hedgehog 4 with episode 2 for specifically this coming weekend. And eventually we're able to bring up a nice little surprise until specifically on Sunday. So I'll see you guys until specifically on Sunday, presumably speaking. So I'll see you guys until then.